Hi there. So today what we're going to do is we're going to go over the Python class, which is a very powerful tool in Python that you may not have heard of, you may not have used, and if you have, you may not have used to its full potential. At the end of the lesson, you should be able to describe what a class is, how to make one, and what it might be used for. Anyways, a class in its basic form, or most basic definition rather, is a set of instructions that Python uses to build an object. As you know, Python's got a number of different objects, such as a dictionary object, a list object, amongst others that are built in, but you can actually write your own objects. So I'm going to demonstrate some of the abilities of a class, or an object, by showing you the list object. You've probably seen this before. If I show you what a list is like in Python here, I can say that my list is equal to a list of 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now if I print my list, you can see that I've now got a list of my data that I passed in. My list is a list object that was created using the list class. Now, very important about what objects can do, and remember classes are what create objects. Objects can both store data, in this case they're storing my 5 values, but they can also contain self-enclosed tools that allow you to manipulate your data. In this case, the self-enclosed tools are called methods, and the list object method has some, the list object class has some methods such as append. I can add on a 6th value onto my list. Now if I show you what my list looks like, you can see the 6th item has been added on. There's other methods that you can have, such as mylist.pop, which removes that last element of the list and returns it back to me as the user. Now if I was to print my list, you'd see that that 6 is gone. So lists and dictionaries and so forth, they're all built in and they're all nice, but sometimes it's useful to define your own type of object. One of the things that I've sometimes wished that I had is an object that defines a box. A physical box. Let's call it two-dimensional, so it has a width and a height. And there are some parameters of interest about that box, such as the perimeter and the area. So what I want to do is I want to walk you through creating a box object that allows me to get both the perimeter of the box and the area of the box as methods of that box object. And I'm going to walk you through how we write the class in order to generate that object. So what I want to do in the end, I'm going to put this as a comment, is I want to have something where I can do this. I want to say my box is equal to some box object, and I want to pass in the width and the height to create the object. I also want to be able to get the perimeter by saying that the perimeter is equal to mybox.perimeter and that the area is equal to mybox.area. So those calls are the calls that I want to make by the time that I'm done. So we're going to start off by giving the class definition, which is simple enough. Now, remember how I said that we have different tools called methods that are attached to our object? Well, the first tool or method that we need to define is the initialization one. It's defined just like a normal function, and the name is always init, which is followed and begun with 2 underscores. Now, what do I pass into this function? The answer is that I always have to pass in a variable called self, which I'm going to explain in just a minute. That's always the first argument. After self, I can plug in anything that I want to pass in. In this case, you can see that I'm going to want to pass in 2 things, a width and a height. So I can add those into the function call right there. Now, what is that self variable doing? Remember how I said that classes or objects could store data? Well, they store data through the self variable. So right now, I can, in my initialization, store width and height within that self variable. So you can see that I've created 2 subvariables within my class called width and height, and I've made them equal to the w and h that I've passed in. Now, why is this important to do? And the reason is because that when I start my next method, which is going to be the perimeter, I've passed self in already. So I can access self.width and self.height. Remember, each method within your class must have self as a input, even if you don't use it. So in this case, the perimeter is equal to self.width times 2 plus self.height times 2. I want to return it to the user because I want to get this p out when I call myBox.perimeter. Notice because I'm not passing anything into this method, it's just self down here. Now I'm going to do this exact same thing with area. In this case, area is equal to self.width times self.height. And I can go ahead and return area. And that's it. Since these are the only methods that I wanted, and since I've completed my initialization, my box definition, or my class definition, is done. Now I can do what I wanted to do. My box equals box of, let's give it a width of 4 and a height of 5. And now I can say that P is equal to my box.perimeter, and A is equal to my box.area. Now just to be nice and clean, I can go ahead and print these out. So I can say that the perimeter is P, and I can say the area is, I can pass in A. Now I'm going to go ahead and save this. You see that I've saved it as testclass.py. I'm going to go ahead and get out of the Python shell here, so I'm just in the normal shell mode, and you can see that I'm in the right directory. There's testclass.py. And I can go ahead and call it right from here. And you can see that it did exactly what I wanted. First thing that it did was define the box object. The second thing that it did is it executed my script code, which created the box object, got the perimeter in the area, and printed it out to the user. Here's the result. If you create class definitions and place them on your Python path, it will allow you to use the import statement just as you would any other module. Now, the real important thing about classes is that they can be used for more than just defining objects. See, here we use it to define an object, but you'll notice that the real power of a class is the fact that it has the self variable, which means that I can share data between all these different functions without having to explicitly pass it in or out of the function argument. This is really powerful, and it allows us to have some specific applications. One of those applications, as I'll talk about in my next variable, is creating TK objects, or GUI programming, which allows us to define a number of different functions or methods that all share the application's data.